I'm Meshal Malik and you're watching Indus Special. Now, the beauty industry is massive. Reports state that the market will grow to be $863 billion by 2024. And anyone who is remotely familiar with the beauty market knows how on a monthly basis beauty trends emerge and change, products come and go. On today's show, we discuss the influence and power the beauty industry has. We also discuss whether beauty standards are now being challenged more than ever before. Joining us for this discussion today is Amina, who is a hairstylist and owner of a salon based here in Lahore. She joins us from Islamabad. Also joining us here in the studios is Maheen, Ahmed, who's a digital marketing expert. Thank you both for joining us and welcome to the show. Amina, I'd like to begin with you. Now, how do you see working in the beauty industry for so long? How do you see it evolving?
Beauty industry has become massive past few years now. People are very aware, they're well-traveled, and they know what is going around them. So, it's very competitive, and client really knows what they want now. So what I feel, working in this market, it keeps us on toes as well, and it has evolved immensely. So we like to work with such a competitive market these days. So it keeps us on toes and challenging a lot, much than before now.
Right. Maheen, as Amina is stating, it is highly competitive, the market there, and it is also very saturated. But we're seeing almost on a monthly basis more products coming out, whether they're face creams, hair products, something new is coming out. But there's always a need for it that is created. Tell us from a marketing standpoint, how is that done?
For example, it's the same with cell phones. For example, Apple does it. Like, they don't really say that, you have to buy this. They tell you that you need to buy this to look a certain way or to have a certain lifestyle. So I believe that's the same with beauty products. For example, fairness creams. They tell you that you need to follow a certain standard of beauty if you want to, only a fair skin is beautiful. So they tell you that, and then when you don't see yourself in ads or billboards, so you kind of feel like, I am not pretty because that's not how I look like, or that's not my skin color. So you resort to such products.
So it seems like there's a very exploitative element here, especially when we're talking about beauty products. Now, you mentioned, and rightfully so, a product that gets a lot of controversy surrounding it.
True.
And I would say rightfully so. I mean, it promotes a certain beauty standard, fair skin over dark-colored skin.
Exactly.
Now, is that something that the beauty industry thrives on, do you feel, exploiting insecurities?
Exactly. They tend to lower your self-esteem to give you an idea that in order to feel good about yourself, you need to buy this product. So basically from a marketing standpoint, they try to manipulate your self-esteem in a certain way to make you feel like you have to follow the standard of beauty. Because it's also cultural. And there is a lot of, there is a globalization of beauty that's been linked with imperialism, racism, and sexism as well. So all of this is manipulated by the industry. That's what I feel. I did a research on it as well, and I found out that people tend to get lower self-esteem when they watch fairness cream advertisements because they feel that's not how they look like.
Right. Now, Amina, your speciality and focus is hair. It's not really beauty products, but it's specifically focusing on hair. Do you also feel like when we're talking about the hair industry, let's call it that there is also this element of exploiting people's insecurities?
We as a businesswoman, so, I have all sorts of clients coming from all over Pakistan. Actually, in here, everybody wants to look good. Everybody wants to have good quality hair, colors, treatments. Everything is out there now. And we have a wide range of colors. We have a lot of, I'm educated towards a lot of hair coloring techniques, hair treatments to make your hair look fuller and prettier. So, what I feel here is something, which is like if they look good, you're halfway dressed up. In fact, 90% dressed up if your hair is, if your hair has a good color and they look nice and, they look made up.
Right.
So I feel that, hair has grown a lot past few years, and people are very aware of new hair colors, new techniques, new hair treatments, and it's growing even more. Every year, every few months, there is a new technique of color. There are new products out there in the market, and it's nice to work in this competitive market.
Right. Okay, so I want to put another question to you in a different way. So we were talking about how there are certain social constructs in place, and Maheen pointed out towards fairness creams. We do know in South Asia specifically, the rate at which fairness creams sell is dangerously high. Now, in terms of this, there are certain beauty standards that are cultural. Let's talk about hair. Certain hairstyles are preferred over others. For example, longer hair over short hair, something like that. Do you feel like that's changing?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, that is changing a lot. People come up to me and they want to play up with their natural texture of hair. So, before it was like everybody wanted straight, sleek, silkier hair. But now, over a few years, what I see that people want us to play with the natural texture. Like, these days, a lot of people, they come up to me who have, very spiral hair and frizzy hair, and, but they don't want to go straighten, and they want us to do whatever we can with the specific hair type. So yes, now, it's no more of that sleek, straight, silkier hair. Now, people are very aware. People want to play with the natural texture and natural hair color.
Right. And that's interesting to know that people are becoming more open to the idea that different forms of beauty, different forms of hair are more acceptable. There are different forms of beauty that are acceptable. Now, Maheen, just talking about how things are marketed, especially when, commercial products are being shown on television, shown on for advertisements. Let's talk about the ugly side of it. A lot of beauty standards are set because of unreasonable expectations shown in these advertisements. Shed light on that.
I want to share something with the hair thing that you talk about. So I take that as an example. So when I was coming here, I saw a video. There was a little girl who had really curly hair, and her mother had curly hair. And then her mother asked her she asked her mother that when did you start to like your hair? Because normally curly hair are not considered as a standard of beauty, or they're not considered pretty. So the lady said I realized that I need to embrace my hair when you were born, because I realized that you will also go through the same dilemma. You'll try to blow dry your hair, you'll try to change them, you'll not embrace them.
Right.
So like advertisements basically try to help you not embrace yourself. They try to tell you that you have to be this way if you want to look beautiful. For example, in the 50s, brands from all over the world hired Hollywood celebrities to market their product because they were trying to endorse a certain product. So like that's when everything started, I believe, because they set a standard that fair skin is beautiful, straight hair are beautiful, and if you don't see yourself in a movie or billboards or ads, you are not pretty because that's not how you look like. So like it's all about embracing yourself, I believe, and advertisements basically use that, and they tell you that you don't need to do it. You need to look a certain way if you want to feel pretty.
Right. Not trying to go on a diverging tangent here, but when we're talking about celebrity endorsements, how powerful are they, especially in beauty products? Are there certain trends that we can see celebrities being conflated with beauty standards and that setting a tone?
Yeah, it is. But I also believe that millennials are also challenging it a lot, because previously no one was there to talk about fairness cream. No one was there to talk about using lighter shades of foundations. But now there's this trend of using natural products, or like embracing yourself. There are a lot of movements going on social media that target those ads. So I think like there is, it has decreased, But there are also a lot of celebrities that in Pakistan specifically, they follow that certain standard of beauty. For example, if Aiza Khan is doing a commercial, she's fair, she has brown hair, she looks a certain way. So people who were born before our generation will try to follow it, and then they'll try to implement it on their children. Like, if you have pimples, you need to use this product, or if you have become dark skinned, so you need to use this cream to look fair, or you need to use a lighter shade of foundation when going to a wedding. Right. So because they follow that person, they see her doing this, so they believe that this is how their children should look like. So sometimes I believe they're also trying to enforce their standard of beauty on millennials.
Right. And you're talking about millennials challenging this more. Of course, there is this growing consciousness. I will talk to Amina about this too, but just before I move on to her, I want to quickly get your take on this. We're seeing more and more exposure of millennials to different forms of media, whether it being social media, television programs, whatever. Why do you think there is this growing awareness that not one beauty standard is right?
I think it has a lot to do with social media, because previously we did not have access to like a lot of media content that we do today. For example, there were no beauty bloggers, there were no Instagram accounts you could follow. Now you can watch live tutorials, you can watch people doing makeup live, or like they upload a 30-second video and they'll tell you how to put on a foundation or how to put on a bronzer or whatever it is. So I think it has a lot to do with social media, because now everyone has access to social media. So I believe that ease of access is the main reason behind this awareness.
Amina, a similar question to you. Why do you think when we're talking about this change, the beauty industry evolving, people becoming more conscious, where do you think this change is coming from? What's bringing it?
Yeah, I agree with Maheen to some extent. Social media has played a very vital role. And everybody has the access to see all the tutorials which are coming up regarding makeup, regarding fitness, regarding hair colors, hairstyles. So the world is in the palm of your hand, and the change, whatever is coming up new, whatever the new trends in fashion, in beauty, in hair, in makeup, it's right there at the social media within few minutes. So the access is very simple. And what I feel, the women have really evolved the whole thing since they are more educated now. So if you look at 20 years back, if you look at it, if you look at in those days, so women were not that aware, women were not that, So what I feel, education also has played a very important role towards the evolve, towards the change. So yes, social media, education, travel, and access to all this on the TV and promos and bloggers. So
right.
That all has greatly changed the perception now.
Right. Now, Amina, with changing perception, there's obviously more room for experimenting. How do you feel like individual expression through, these experiments, whether even if a person is dealing with their hair, is changing? Do you think people are expressing who they want to be more and more through their beauty, through their beauty expressions, by the clothes they wear, by the way they style their hair?
So when clients, they come up to me, they have their role models also. They have caring styles with them as well. But I always go with their own personality. I look at their skin color. I look at their personality. I look at the way they walk, the way they dress up. So they have their role models, and then I also try to convince them to go with their own personality and with their own style. So, we have all sorts of people now.
That's a very interesting point, trying to convince someone to go with their own personality. Now, with a person who's a bit confused with so many options out there, how do you convince them to identify what that factor is within them and go with that factor that aligns with their personality?
That's the work of a good hairstylist. That's where trained for. That's the way. If that's not there, then you're not a good hairstylist. Same is the case with a doctor. When you go to a doctor and when you tell them what you're dealing with, so they know what to do and how to do. So, same is the case with us. I feel when you have the education, when you have the complete know-how, and when you have the command on what you're doing, so it's very easy to convince and put sense in your client. And client is very smart too. So,
Right.
it is easier for me to deal with them when I know my subject well.
Right. And that's a great note to end this segment on. Thank you so much, Amina Tahir, for joining us from Islamabad. We're going to go for a short break. When we return, we're going to have another story for you. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, anywhere and everywhere you go, one thing that will remain constant is the social value given to the idea of popularity. On today's episode, we dig deeper into this very idea. What does popularity really mean? And why is it seen to be so important in our social interactions? Let's discuss this story in detail. Joining us is Maheen, who's a digital marketing expert in our Lahore studios. Also in our Lahore studios is Amina, who's a social media expert, Omar Mansoor, who is a London-based fashion designer joining us from Lahore, and Professor Samina Yasmeen, a political scientist also joining us from Lahore. Thank you all for joining us and welcome to the show. Amina, now let me begin with you. What do you think about the idea of popularity today? How can we understand it? I mean, does it vary from person to person how they see it?
The idea of popularity today depends on social media, to be honest, because I work with Paparazzi magazine and we are constantly posting on Instagram. Every time, everyone is, from teenagers to adults to brands, they use social media as a marketing tactic, and it is so important that you're constantly on Instagram. So there's a difference between popularity and actually being liked. So, for example, if you have a lot of likes on Instagram, you might be popular, but you might not always be liked as a person. Do you understand? So, like, for example, if you are in kindergarten or in school, it's the same way. Like, there's some kids that like each other and there's some kids that are popular, but they are not always liked. Do you understand the difference between that?
Likability is not contingent upon
Exactly. You can be
much...
popular, but you don't have to be liked always.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Professor Samina Yasmeen, Ramina makes an important point here. She points out that for her, social media is the main tool in which we can really judge how popular a person is. Now, that's not just for, an individual. Even political figures are now more and more heavily relying on social media as a yardstick of trying to judge their public support. How much of a role is social media playing in, this construction of the self in today's modern age?
A huge role, because I think what we've seen in the last 10 years or so is that those leaders who know how to manage social media end up getting a lot more recognition, popularity, and even if they're, as Ramina said, they're not liked, they keep on talking about issues that others have to respond to. So being disliked actually becomes one way of them gaining more popularity. And really, when we see at the global level the rise of populism, of the populist leaders, we see that they very creatively use this media. For example, these days we have that impeachment inquiry going on in the United States about President Trump. And even though there are other news that are coming up, the fact that he regularly tweets and criticizes the different people who are giving their opinion adds to his sense of being recognized. And I think that's the process that a lot of other leaders have picked up. In Pakistan, Imran Khan, I think he took it to a great extent. And others are listening and learning from him, and they're following his trend as well. So Maryam Nawaz uses social media. But I think globally we see a lot of leaders who are creating their own narrative using the social media. But I would still say that there's a very clear difference between being popular for having values and popular for really making a difference in the society locally or internationally, and the image of being popular.
Right.
Because this transparent image that comes through social media isn't really sustainable over a long period of time.
Right. Professor Samina, before we progress into our conversation, I do want to discuss the term popularity that we're using here. Now, it seems like a very superficial term, talking about very superficial things, but is there something deeper behind it? I mean, is it linked to something greater, social mobility, a person's actual social presence within a society?
Popularity has always been connected to social mobility. If we look at human societies as tribes, basically people who wanted to be the heads of the tribes, based their acceptance or the acceptance of their role on this understanding that others were willing to give them that recognition, either because they had the power or because they could convince them. And so instead of being ordinary members of the society, they became the leaders. If we replicate that at a national or global level, people who want to be popular, they're actually saying that they carry values, ideas that others want from them.
Right.
And that they have a social value. And that contributes to social mobility. But I think the way these discussions are presented today are very different from the notion of popularity, say, in the past.
Right, of course.
Ali Bhutto's popularity was on a different plan.
Right.
Yeah.
Professor Samina, thank you so much for shedding light on that big concept that we're trying to talk in greater depth about. I want to take my next question to Omar. Now, Omar, you work in a very glamorous industry, and as we were talking about the social value, of course, when we talk about social values and construction of identity and the self, there is this concept of, creating a persona. How important do you think that is when a person wants to become popular, well-liked, and wants to become what we would call in this day and age a socialite?
When you talk about a brand and a person in itself, so most of the brands run by designers in fashion, they are namesakes. So there's one Omar who is a brand and one Omar who is a person. So when you talk about the brand, then you have to maintain a certain image with a certain mindset and very clarity that this is what you want to communicate to your audience, this is what you want to sell to your audience, and this persona has to be created, whether online or offline. So obviously, for sake of brand, there is a big hunger to get all the attention and all the popularity. But when it comes to the same person who is behind the name, it may or may not be the same issue. Some people are very introvert, but the brand has to be communicated in a very extrovert way because the designs are extrovert.
Right. And that's a very interesting point when you're talking about the larger concept of brands. We're going to dig a little deeper into that. But before, I want to ask Maheen. Maheen, how difficult has branding become, especially when we're talking about a saturated market? More and more people are coming out with their brands. They want to get noticed. How difficult has it become to, come out with a unique brand?
Exactly. I mean that the core value that you need to instill in your whole branding campaign is how different you are from the other brands. And it has become difficult because there are a lot of brands doing the same thing. For example, if you take lawn ads or lawn brands, whenever there's an influx of lawn brands, and then you have to come up with either like different designs or you have to come up with a different strategy. Like you could go into influencer marketing. A lot of brands are doing that. Like they send a certain product to an influencer and use his or her followers to gain followers on their own social media. So I think it's not just restricted to TV ads anymore. You need to get people on board who are popular to get to a different side of the audience.
So that's a very interesting point as personality element. And Amina, when we're talking about influencers, we're seeing a lot of them out there on social media, some that have made it, some that are trying to get there. What do you think works for a person who's already gotten there? Like what works to become an influencer?
So there are a lot of influencers in Lahore, but I'm not going to name a few. There are only a certain number that have actually made it. Brands give their clothes to them. They like to market them. They wear them, and the brands, when the influencer wears the clothes, the people who actually follow them, the people who actually look up to them, they instantly want to go and buy the clothes as well. So that's why they use influencers. They usually PR brands call a lot of influencers and bloggers. They send them outfits so they can come and attend events. And There are a lot of struggling ones who are trying, but then again, if Instagram disappears, then what's going to happen? You know?
Right.
Exactly.
So, but I want to get to the point that Omar made earlier,
Yeah.
which was about, separating the person from the brand, and, they can be two separate people. Do you think that concept kind of changes when we're talking about an influencer? Because it seems almost like that influencer is selling their personality.
Yeah, so they're marketing themselves. That influencer has become a brand of its own. So they are marketing themselves. Yes, so there is no difference. They are in front of the so mostly whatever you see on Instagram is fake, to be honest. Like a lot of things that are being posted is not actually what it seems like, because when we look at pictures, we're like, oh my God, it looks so nice, everything, but that's not how it is. It is just the way people want you to see from the outside world. So influencers are a brand of their own, and they have to market themselves to actually become something important.
So Omar, I want to get your take on this. We're talking about this very quickly changing dynamic where people are becoming brands in their own. Do you feel that that impacts the quality of a person's work, that, discredits or takes away from people who are actually working hard on their products, putting in effort in their work?
When we talk about the Instagram influencer, they are mainly just influencer. I mean, they are there to sell themselves, sell an image, and get paid to sell themselves and to sell the product. So before, the endorsements used to come through magazines, through old medium, which was the print media. So we used to have models, we used to have actors wearing those brands, attending events, and because now things went online, so we got I don't want to use any weird word, but many influencers. Like everybody get a chance to become an influencer, who may or may not be an influencer in real life, who may not even have the charm to be an influencer on real life.
But what does that mean? It doesn't have a chance to be an influencer in real life. What do you mean by that?
They may be arrogant. They may not have the politeness to communicate. They may be very fake, all those injections, Botox, whatnot nowadays. So then here comes a proper Photoshopped image with all the filters and maybe liposuction bodies and stuff like that. And then, yes, here we go. I'm presenting this brand because I'm wearing, you buy it. And the experience of the buyer may not be the same as the person who is trying to promote it fakely. So as
well, I'd like to put my opinion out there too. I think, if a person wants to amend their body in a certain way, we maybe shouldn't we shouldn't conflate that with being fake per se. Professor Samina, Yasmeen, I'd like to jump to you. Now, we're talking, and the panel seems to agree that there is this dual reality we're living in. Social media versus the reality we see. Do you feel like this is causing social problems? The modern day dilemmas we're witnessing today is due to this dual reality?
Look, it's a dual reality for those people who are exposed to social media. So we often assume that social media represents or encapsulates the reality of the whole world. But we really need to ask that what percentage of the people have access to that facility, and then see whether or not certain people can become popular on cyberspace, but not really in real life. But if we go beyond that, I think it's a very different space, because in smaller social circles, in societies, people who do not have access to this facility, they still have qualities that make them popular. People want to go to them, people want to seek their advice. So we need to really talk about the question of what is real popularity? Is it transient? Is it permanent? Is it connected to real values of empathy and what we used to call emotional intelligence? Or is it really, as our other speakers are talking about, simply a matter of branding, how you present yourself, whether you make yourself look prettier or not so pretty based on your choice? That becomes a branding exercise. It's not the real solid in real popularity, which I think is authentic, because we need to really start thinking about who is authentically popular and who is not authentically popular, but for the time being, it's attracting attention from people. And again, that small group of people who subscribe to the cyberspace.
Right.
Somebody like me, I would find it really hard to even see what kind of an influencer can influence me because I don't operate in that space. But there are other people who do. But then to what extent the person who is influencing them is really getting to the point of emotional maturity and then shaping the views of others. Unless and until there's real authenticity in this, I think then it just becomes, as other people have said, it's a fakeness that we carry on in the world. So we really have to start asking ourselves questions about what do we mean by being popular?
Right. Maheen, with you, I can talk about corporations and their branding and their popularity. What do you think when brands are trying to become popular in this entire age? What works for them?
I believe that, for example, from a buyer's point of view, first I would like to come from a buyer's point of view. I believe that if a brand sends an influencer a PR package, you must agree with me. So like when they send a package, they send the item for free and then they also pay the influencer to upload the pictures or like make stories or whatever it is that they are inclined to do. So when they do that, automatically, psychologically, that person is liable to give them a good review because they're paying them. They're sending them a product for free that they don't have to buy otherwise.
And even if the product is bad, they will still say something good about it.
So like the decision-making process is entirely dependent on the brand. They can pay influencers to give them a good review, even if the product is not good enough.
Would you say it's become easier to manipulate people?
Yes, it has. It has become very easy because influencers just want your product for free, or they want some like a certain amount of money to just post pictures on their social media and then upload a story of like unpackaging an item to like show that this is a real product and you should go to this website and order it. Like it has become really easy for brands to actually just put their product out there.
But where does the consumer, average consumer, who's not an influencer, who goes out to the market, buys a product with their own money, lose out in all of this?
They lose out because they usually watch Instagram stories where bloggers and publications are posting, oh my God, I got this product and it's really, really good, even though if it's not. And they would probably believe it and they would go and buy it. And that's where they're all influenced because so many people are giving good reviews, but half of them are not even true.
There is also this new trend. There's also this new trend of store raids. Like they get a group of influencers and then they ask them to go into a store, try out new clothes, upload pictures outside the store or inside the store and then return the product. It's like they get their product out there and they basically do nothing.
It's like a whole different world. Omar, do you think this has become necessary for like fashion designers to do? Because do you think even if the product is strong enough, if you don't do this, you just can't survive?
It's not at all that important still. Obviously, it's a promotional tool. It helps brands, be it garments brand or clothing, jewelry brands or makeup brands. It does help them, but it's not something really compulsory. Even if the brand has a certain following and the brand's its own page is posting such photos, etc., of their product, people can get even more influence that the brand has the right product on their page, and because the brand has a good image with their quality and with their service, so people can buy straight away. It's not still much compulsory to have fake influencers. I think a real woman wearing a real dress in a real way influences more people rather than, as I mentioned before.
Okay, so let's try to unpack the messy elements of this too. When you attach the brand too closely to a personality or several personalities, doesn't that put the brand in a greater state of danger as well? For example, now being politically correct is very important in this day and age. For instance, if person A is endorsing your brand, but they have also said something or done something that is not acceptable or is in fact wrong, wouldn't that damage the brand?
It probably would. I think it would damage the brand.
Because there is a database and you can literally find a video that a person did 10 years ago supporting something that is considered politically incorrect today.
Yeah.
For example, if they made a sexist comment, or they have been supporting patriarchy, or they've been supporting a certain standard of beauty, as we talked about fairness creams, there are a lot of actresses who have been under this limelight for just endorsing a fairness cream 10 years ago, because now people think that it's wrong.
Right.
You shouldn't support
That
that,
you should
and you should embrace yourself.
Embrace whatever
Exactly.
you are.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Professor Samina, Yasmeen, we're coming to the end of our show, and I just want to ask you a last question. You talked about transient popularity, something that, of course, lasts beyond, social media, something that is more authentic. What does that mean today? I mean, we're trying to come to the answer of it. We've talked about social media, we've talked about the digital realm, but what more is behind this?
I think the real popularity for me is people who can distinguish between good and what is not good. And we can't just simply say it's evil, but values that actually contribute to human wellness and values that actually connect people for the good of the environment. So, for example, Greta Thunberg, who got involved in the climate change issues, she is a real solid, popular person who starts at a very small level but then continues. So I think the real popularity involves commitment to the values that make a difference in the world. And that popularity can suddenly come to an end, as we have seen with Prince Andrew. The fact that he gave that interview because of Epstein suddenly has got him and the monarchy in a situation that people have started pulling out. And so for that reason, he's decided to step back, or maybe he's been told to step back. So what it really means, as I think other speakers have said, is that if you have solid values that help you to make the world a better place, even if you're not very popular initially, your influence lasts a lot longer beyond that short period of time. But if you're a fake influencer or popular for the time being, as things change, then your popularity comes to an end. And people forget. And, there's so many people in the world that have gone through that. And there's so many writers and thinkers who have retained their popularity beyond their lifetime.
Right. On that point, thank you so much, Prof. Amina, Yasmeen, for joining us and talking to us. Yeah, Ramina, you had something to add.
So studies basically show that especially students and kids who were popular in school, they were not very much liked. But as they grow up, they are more likely to be dropouts, to not be successful in their lives because...
They also have, there's this word that you might know about, FOMO, fear of missing out. It means I have seen that in a lot of people, that they feel that if they don't go to a certain event, they'll miss out on something big. And it in turn gives them anxiety. So, I think FOMO is
and also a social climb, but that's what they are called.
Okay, so let me ask you guys this. Now, it's much easier to quantify popularity these days, right? We've been talking a lot about social media. Looking at the number of likes you've gotten, looking at the number of retweets you've gotten, you kind of use that as a measure to see how well liked you are or how popular you are. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
See, I'll tell you. So a lot of people who post on Instagram, yes, they are going to be wearing all the branded clothes. They will have their makeup and hair on fleek. They will have their Chanel bags. But we never really think about if you strip them out of all those things and if they don't have a personality, then I don't think they will be popular.
I think there are two types
It's just how visually they look like on Instagram. So I'm sure if you look nice on Instagram, people will like your picture.
But that's the thing. Those are the people on the other end who are giving validation to that person, right? They're the ones who are liking that picture. Do you think that whole exercise, how meaningful do you think that whole act is? Now, there are experiments that are showing Facebook in many countries has taken away the like feature. On Instagram, it's taken away the like feature. Taking away that feature, are you guys in favor of it, or do you guys disagree with it? Maheen, you go first.
I think that it's a good step, because I think likes and a number basically can psychologically impact you a lot. For example, if you see someone has more followers or more likes than you, you're likely to have a low self-esteem at one point, or you'll try to do stuff that's not right to gain that sort of popularity. And I think there are two types of popularities. One is basically when you're just showcasing yourself or your personality, and there's this other type of popularity when you want to change the world. You want to make a difference by talking about social issues, or talking about political views, or talking about anything that goes wrong. For example, there was a director who said something very misogynist, and after a while there was a lot of backlash on the internet for him. Like every celebrity, every influencer talked about it, and if they don't, they have FOMO. They fear that they'll miss out on if they don't talk about a certain issue.
Right.
Yeah.
Amina, do you
I
agree
think
with
it's
that?
a good step. I think people should embrace themselves. They should love themselves. They should not try to be something that they're not.
Exactly.
They should not try to look at other people's Instagram and be like, oh my God, I want to be like that. You need to be authentic, genuine, and love yourself. So I think that's a great step.
Right. So you're talking about this being a good move towards
It is
the
a
right
good move.
direction,
It is a
that
good
we're
move.
taking away these measures in which, you know, you're trying to quantify something.
Because nobody can validate you except yourself. If you're happy within, you will always be happy. Nobody can make you happy and tell you, oh, if you have a number of likes, that doesn't make you. You need to be strong and happy within yourself.
I think like is just a shortcut for a comment. Like if you don't want to comment, you'll just like a picture. And then you won't have to type it out. So now I think people will have to make an effort to type a comment out to tell someone that they look good. I think it's a good step.
Right. So we've been talking a lot about all of this, and we've been discussing how, you know, people can move on. What do you feel like people can do to move towards their authentic selves? We've been discussing this is good, this is bad, this is, you know, fake, this isn't fake. But we have come to this point where people have sought out social media, so many other means for validation. How do you think we can revert back to a time when that wasn't the case?
I think that what I had a girl who messaged me once. She's like, why do you post pictures of yourself? I feel that, I mean, I need to live that sort of a lifestyle. And I told her that, you know, what I support is that you can look good even if you don't have expensive clothes. I think more bloggers need to talk about finding inexpensive things and uploading and glamourifying all of that. So I think that would be a good step towards going towards the right side of popularity.
Right.
I agree with Maheen as what she said, and also because when we go to events, because I'm with paparazzi, we have to go to a lot of events, we have to dress up, we have to post pictures with a lot of filters just to make, you know, yourself look good. So I myself personally took a step a few days ago actually to post a picture without any makeup, without any eyebrows filled, and, you know, just to show people that, you know, you need to love yourself. No matter how you are, because these are just filters. It will temporarily make you happy, but it's not actually who you are.
Because deep down, you know, this is not me.
Exactly.
When you look at a picture, so
you might be happy for a little while, okay, I'm getting a lot of likes on it, but it's not who you are.
Exactly.
So I think people should just embrace themselves.
Embrace themselves.
Embrace it, fear it, love yourself.
Right. So, of course, now we're just going to wrap up the show. That is an important note that we're trying to come to, that embracing yourselves instead of running after something such as popularity is important. But we also know that popularity is something that has become an essential tool. Now, to get noticed, networking is something that is not just needed, you know, for social media, but it's needed for jobs. It's needed for building contacts. How do we maneuver through this? How do we find a balance?
So there's a difference between networking and there's a difference between social climbing. With networking, you meet people, you talk to them, it's work related. You're invited somewhere, you go, and you make contacts, and, you know, but there's this thin line between networking and social climbing. Social climbing is attending parties you're not invited to, which just it doesn't make any sense, I think. It ruins your reputation, and you might think you're doing well, but there are a lot of people who are laughing at you. Do you understand?
Yeah, I do. I think that it's not only about not being invited to a party. I think it's also going to a party where you don't resonate with an audience.
Exactly, just for the sake of it.
Just for the sake of it, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ramina Meripova for joining us, and thank you so much, Maheen, Ahmed, for joining us. It's a pleasure having you guys on the show, and thank you, Omar, Mansoor, for joining us from Lahore. Thank you for watching Indus Special. We will see you again next time with more stories. Till then, goodbye and take care.